Woody Johnson finally addressed the state of the New York Jets, and it went about how you would expect. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Rich Sports Talk, your home for all the latest and greatest on the New York Jets. We are breaking down Woody Johnson's comments about Aaron Glenn, the state of the New York Jets, and Justin Fields, all coming up next. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Rich Sports Talk, your home for all the latest and greatest on the New York Jets. If you are new to the channel, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any of our live streams and any of our latest content. And if you want to take us on the go, we are available wherever podcasts are available. Woody Johnson was approached at the NFL owners meeting today, and he had comments that rang through the organization and this fan base. There is a lot to talk about, both in the short and the long term, but let's dive right into some of the biggest quotes. Of course, Woody Johnson was asked how he thought Aaron Glenn was doing, turning the Jets around. The defense is pretty good. If we can just complete a pass, it would look good, Johnson would say. We've got to complete some passes. You've got to convince me that you can do something. Otherwise, it's hard to have a game that you can win. And just to also bury it a little bit more, Justin Fields, it looks like Aaron Glenn has turned around parts of it. It's hard when you have a quarterback with a rating that we've got. He has the ability, but something isn't jibing. Now, again, I'm not sure if that rating is a Madden rating, a PFF rating, but regardless, it is clear that not only has Justin Fields lost the starting job for the Jets, Justin Fields might not be a member of the New York Jets for long, and we'll dive into all that in a little bit. But, Woody Johnson also saying, well, the record speaks for itself, but I don't go to any game thinking I'm going to lose. I see what you see, but I see more hope than you do. You can't win with hope. It helps. This completely up to the coach. I'm not going to be involved in any of that. This is what they're paid to do, and this is what they're expecting to do, and they'll make the right decision with what we've got. Also made comments about he liked how the defense and special teams has been improving in recent weeks under Aaron Glenn. And finally also said, talking about Jets fans and how they should have hope. They've been at it for a long time, so they know exactly what's going on. Johnson said, I think they're the smartest fans in the world. I think they do know what's going on. They know what I see and look. I think there's a lot I want to dive into. And I'll talk about how I think Woody's messaging to the fan base could have been better, especially specifically to the fans. Why I think there was a subtle shot across the bow from Woody Johnson to Aaron Glenn and Darren Muji. But let's start off with the big one, and that's Justin Fields. Justin Fields now is in an awkward position because I think his Jet tenure is over. And it's a weird situation that Woody has now put this coaching staff in because Fields looked shot for the first 7 games. But the problem is the Jets gave him a massive contract. And yes, it's a 2-year deal, but if he is cut next offseason or at some point this season, there will be $22 million dead cap towards the 2026 salary cap. Fields, I thought, could maybe compete for a starting job with the up-and-coming quarterback, although I do think Tyrod Taylor is a better bridge quarterback potentially next year. But now there's a lot of questions, and they're serious questions. Unfortunately, Tyrod Taylor gets hurt. What happens if he gets hurt? Do you go to the undrafted rookie, or do you put Justin Fields back in there? What does this do to this locker room? Again, Garrett Wilson, who you've paid handsomely and you wanted to build around, in the span of a couple weeks, you see him not agreeing with this coaching staff, and you're also seeing now them not only taking a shot, but burying Justin Fields. And look, I'll give Woody this. Were his words harsh on Justin Fields? Yes, but he's right. He's accurate. And look, if the Jets had better quarterback play, I do think they'd be in a better position. But here's the problem. Woody has a right to say this, but just because he can doesn't mean he probably should, because now he has put this coaching staff in an awkward position in this locker room because while it does seem the locker room tends to favor Tyrod over Justin, there's going to be this uneasy divide, and especially if you have to go back to Justin Fields. Is Justin Fields sitting in his locker today going to request to be flat out released because the owner basically told the football world he doesn't think his quarterback is any good? Does this also lead to Justin Fields demanding a trade? Again, I don't know who would take him, but the problem is, and I've seen this with Jets fans, I think this is the biggest problem. This to me is just throwing more gasoline on the fire that this fan base has toward this regime. Because the biggest thing I have seen on social media, and again, I don't want Aaron Glenn to be a one-done head coach because I don't want to go through this process again. I'm hoping he can get some pieces in here and prove me wrong down the stretch and show growth down the stretch. But here's the thing. This fan base, the thing that they're going to look back on with this comment is, well, this is their guy. To be frank with all of you, when the Jets signed Justin Fields at the time, I understood the idea of the reclamation project, but to be honest, I thought it was a bit strange because when Aaron Glenn said he wanted to run the football and be very much like Detroit, I was thinking to myself, they're going to try to look for some highly accurate passer. I thought Mac Jones would have been a possible candidate. Again, highly accurate passer, more of an efficient passer, not overly great athlete, but I thought could be in that role, game manager, not make the mistakes, be able to convert on the short passing game, move the chains, not necessarily a huge arm, but good enough to just move the football. But instead, they went with Justin Fields, and it seemed to me like a very big departure from the style of quarterback that Detroit wanted. But again, Aaron Glenn wanted this quarterback. He made sure that this quarterback got $30 million guaranteed for a 2-year contract. And again, in the grand scheme of the NFL, it's just slightly above what the rookies are making. So it's not the worst quarterback contract. But when you look at how badly it has gone through the 7 games with Justin Fields, this fan base, and I understand the frustration, is saying they're looking and going, why should we trust this regime? And a part of me also feels like the comment from Woody was a bit of a shot at Muji and Glenn a little bit, which is, hey, I acknowledge that you don't have good quarterback play, but you also made the decision that this was the quarterback you wanted. You made the decision that you wanted just Justin Fields. You made the decision not to draft anyone on day 3. You made the decision not to bring in any additional competition. You made the decision that it was going to be just Tyrod and Justin Fields. And to be honest, they just handed Justin Fields the starting job. There wasn't a competition in July. There wasn't a competition camp. It was Justin Fields as our starter. And now this fan base is going to look back and say, the owner acknowledges that the decision to go after Justin Fields was not a good one. But the other problem with this, too, when you look at this, Woody, and why I think he should have been a little bit more careful with his wording is because I do like the passion that Woody has, and I do understand he's frustrated like we are. But unfortunately, you've now put more doubt in this fan base that this regime that you have hired is going to get it right with the quarterback. And when you look at the last 5 first-round picks, all their coaches have been fired after 1 season. And I think a lot of Jet fans are afraid, like, why do we want to waste a season of this young quarterback who we're hoping to get with one of the top 2 picks? And have you seen the defense get better? Sure. Is the special teams better? Sure. But you also have a coach that at the end of a half for a second week in a row didn't try a Hail Mary and just walked off the field and let the time expire. Like, it is just so frustrating for this fan base. And when I look at Woody Johnson and how he addressed this fan base, I think he could have done a better job. Like, it's not great optics when the ticket prices for this team continue to gone up, and this fan base is apathetic toward this team. And now, unfortunately, when I look at this handling with Justin Fields, I think it was a shot by Woody Johnson saying, look, guys, I understand you don't have good quarterback play, but I let you pick this quarterback, and I'm going to let you know I'm not happy with it. So if this season continues to go off the rails, maybe he will look into getting a change. And part of me also thinks, too, because he talked about hugging Aaron Glenn, talking to him, how much of a fan he is, how much he appreciates him being a future Jet. Part of me also thinks maybe this was a bit of a PR move where he made this public statement, and in his mind, he thinks he's doing Aaron Glenn a favor because Aaron Glenn, rightfully so, has been getting chastised in the media for the London comments about how could you even, how's that even a question that I would go to a different quarterback? And then 2 quarters later, he's going to that other quarterback. And I think that with Tyrod, you're going to see a little bit more accurate passing. But now the Jets have this weird hold. Like, let's say Tyrod plays good for 3 weeks, but then he gets hurt. What do? Do you go with Brady Cook, your undrafted free agent? I'm going to be very curious to see how the Jets handle it, because the smart thing for me would be try to find some veteran backup around the league, either in a trade or free agency, just so you have something. Because like I've said, Tyrod was the right decision because this team needs to evaluate where they are, and the best chance to do that is Tyrod Taylor. But man, it just never ends, does it, ladies and gentlemen? It just never ends. Again, comments, super chat to jump to the front of the line. Again, Woody Johnson, saying he's leaving the decisions up to the coach with Aaron Glenn. He says he believes in Aaron Glenn, but right now, I think the messaging is not getting across this fan base. I think 2 things needed to be done, which is he says he sees progress, but he didn't give an example of the progress. Because I'll tell you, Jet fans, we're not seeing that progress. Yes, the defense has played better for 2 weeks, but you need to see that more consistently throughout the season. And the other thing I think that is rubbing a lot of Jet fans the wrong way is just the feeling of mistreatment from the season ticket holders, because people have paid into this for years. People have dealt with increasing prices. And it just feels like if this ownership group says, look, I understand the frustration. I get it. I'm going to make this right. And give this fan base something. Give them something, incentives with their ticket patches, lower concession prices, lower parking prices, make it a better experience. Like, have the price match the product. And again, you as the owner, you're going to get hand over fist with just the television contract. So, and I've seen this on social media too, like, well, we're not going to buy season tickets. We're not going to go to the games. You know what? You have every right not to go to the games. But Woody's still going to make a ton of money regardless. Show us a sign of faith, like, make it more affordable to go to these games, because they're not fun to watch right now. Let's be honest. If anything, it is a chore to get through some of these games. Super chat, jump to the front of the line. Okay. Fields isn't a pocket pass. Oh, she should have played Fields to his strength and let him throw. He's terrified. And that's the thing that bothers me is when they went to Justin Fields, I'm like, do they have a plan for Justin Fields? And it's clear they didn't. I was expecting a traditional drop down. Like, they're trying to make a square peg in a round hole. Like, there's no designed runs. I thought we were going to see them run RPO all the time. I thought we were going to see them do a lot of play action. Like, there doesn't seem to be creativity in the play calling, but part of it, I think, is the trust. And you can see Tanner Engstrom, when he was with Tyrod Taylor, the offense looked more traditional. It looked more like the Detroit style offense, where with Justin, it just felt like they were just not being able to run an effective offense. I'm sorry. Like, you got to play to your quarterback's strengths. And was Fields to blame a lot for his struggles? Sure. But the coaching staff sure didn't do him any favors. They didn't put him in great situations. And that's why I think people are terrified. Jets will start Brady Cook and develop him while winning the tank on number 1 pick. I don't know, dude. I mean, the Dolphins seem pretty clear like they're going to try to tank the rest of this season with the way that thing's going. But that's a big question, Tony, does Brady Cook get elevated? Like, is there a chance Brady Cook is the Jets' backup quarterback in Cincinnati, against Cincinnati? There's a possibility. Like, do they make Justin Fields inactive? Is he the backup? It's kind of a really awkward situation now where basically the owner said you're a terrible quarterback. You don't deserve to play. What happens with Justin Fields? Does Justin Fields all of a sudden volunteer to start working in like packages where he's a runner 5 or 6 times a game? I really don't know. I really don't understand. JLS with a really good comment. That's a funny joke. John, we started with a bad team, but one that had Aaron Rodgers, Devontae Adams. Now it's a winless team, and some fans are seriously asking for Brady Cook. I mean, it's that bad, John. I mean, where do you go? And look, this is the thing I put on this regime. You had an opportunity to draft a quarterback this year. And I didn't even say draft a quarterback in the early parts of this draft. They did a lot of homework on day 3 guys like Cam Miller, Kyle McCord. Like, they could have drafted them, but instead they have to use that draft capital to trade up for Tyler Barron, who barely plays. It's frustrating to me because even guys like Cam Miller are some of the guys that got on days they were 6th or 7th round picks. I'm like, why aren't they taking a guy just in case Justin Fields doesn't work out? Because Justin Fields is a lottery ticket. You're hoping he's good, but if you don't have the success you're expecting, show us that you can develop a rookie quarterback. And again, there's maybe not a huge difference between an undrafted and a 6th round quarterback, but at least if you show a competent game plan and that you're putting that rookie in successful spots, maybe you can convince this fan base, they understand how to handle a young quarterback. Because right now, they're not showing that. They're not showing that they're putting the quarterback. And it shouldn't be this hard to score in a league that is designed to score points. The Jets have not scored an offensive touchdown now in 8 quarters. They haven't scored a first half touchdown since week 1. And let's call it like it is. They really haven't had a legitimate touchdown in weeks. How many touchdowns are they getting in the 4th quarter or the 3rd quarter in garbage time? It's ridiculous. And the thing is, when you look at guys like Mendoza coming out and some of these good quarterbacks, if they get the number 1 pick, I think every option has to be on the table. And like I've said, you also look at this. This could be an intriguing offseason with a lot of head coaches that have had experience, like a Mike McCarthy. A Kevin Stefanski could become available. A Harbaugh could become available from the Ravens. I mean, this could be a unique offseason where we see a lot of former head coaches who have that experience be able to take over and draft a quarterback. Why does Glenn tell the media he has to ask another coach's answer the question? Like, that's something too, Tony. And again, I'm going to sound like a broken record freaking on here, but I almost feel like, and again, Jets, if you're listening, have other Jets content creators just put us in a conference room with Aaron Glenn. Just say, look, these are the things you should talk about at the press conference and not. And that's the other thing. Aaron Glenn, when he came in, was incredibly confident. He was like, this is my show. I'm going to run it my way. But every week, it seems like I'm calling this coach for advice. I'm calling this coach for advice. I'm calling this coach. So it just feels more of like a facade than an actual that actually was authentic. Because if you were authentic, you'd be doing this homework. It feels like you're making more phone calls to Parcells to try to save you and try to figure out this mess than look at the film, look at the offense, talk to Tanner Engstrom. What's working? What's not working? What are different play designs? And this is the frustrating thing, I think, too. And I, again, will preface this by saying it. I am not a play designer. I played high school football. My football playing experience is very limited. But when I can come on this show and I can come up to this microphone and feel like I can make better play designs or better situations than some of these coaching calls, it is very frustrating. Like, the Jets never run jet sweeps. They never run RPOs. Like I said, one play option that I've been screaming for, and again, I used Braylon Allen before, but I'll use Isaiah Davis in this point. Here's a play design if you had Justin Fields, whose strength is a running quarterback. And again, I know we've talked about the armed forces offenses, but that is the strength of this team right now. You have a 3rd and 3. You have a 3rd and 2. You have a 3rd and 4. You want to run the football. Here's a play design. You have Isaiah Davis lined up right next to Justin Fields. Breece Hall's in the slot. Motion Breece Hall in the backfield. Snap the football. You have an option where you can give it to the outside to Breece Hall with a full head of steam. You can give a RPO and put it in the gut of Davis, or you could have Justin Fields keep the football. That is 3 different options just to run the ball off of one play. But I have not seen anything like that. And part of it, too, is I'm curious to see how much Engstrom's going to call this week, because he looked a lot more confident with his older quarterback in the second half, they never called the trick play this year until Tyrod Taylor was out there. This team was actually pushing the football down the field. And look, if Tyrod Taylor isn't cold in this game, maybe he hits Allen Lazard, who again is just a waste in a jersey, if you ask me. I just don't get it. And here's the thing, JLS. It's good. I'm going to say this right now. Do I trust AG at this moment? If you had a gun to my head, I say no. I have to see a lot from this offense. If in 3 or 4 weeks, I think Tanner Engstrom and this offense start to move the football, they put Tyrod Taylor in manageable positions. You see Arian Smith start to develop. You see more higher usage of Mason Taylor. Garrett Wilson's more involved once he's back. Maybe I can switch my opinion. But if you're asking me today, I don't. Because this offensive staff, like, you cannot be upset right now with your personnel. Because you went into the season with this personnel. You made the decision not to sign a number 2 receiver. You made a decision only to draft 1 receiver in the draft, and you picked a project receiver in the 4th round. And the other thing, too, that's driven me nuts, and again, tell me if you think I'm wrong here, but I really believe this. Why do the Jets not use their tight end personnel? They made such a big deal about getting Jelani Woods, the 6'7" tight end from the Colts, his athleticism. They made such a big deal about signing Stone Smart in the offseason. Why don't they use them as receivers? Because I'm sorry, Allen Lazard is a waste in a jersey right now. Josh Reynolds, okay, made a couple nice plays last week. But you look at the strength of this team, it's the tight ends compared to the receiver room. Design plays for your tight end. Get Stone Smart on the outside. Move the football around. Like, get Mason Taylor more as your number 1 receiver because, let's be honest, he's your best pass catcher at the moment because Garrett Wilson's hurt. So I just look at this basically and I go, this team just feels like such a mess. And I understand that Woody is saying he believes in Aaron Glenn. He trusts Aaron Glenn. And look, you want Aaron Glenn to work because you want this cycle to end. You want Aaron Glenn to work because you want to stop this merry-go-round of pain and misery. But the more we watch, it feels like this team just is further back. Like, we've seen bad offensive football, but this is just a new level. And this is different because the offensive line is better, but this team just completely neglected its resources in the offseason. I mean, here's the thing. With Darren Muji and Aaron Glenn, they wanted to go in this offseason. They went in the season with Justin Fields a lottery ticket. They went in the season without proper competition for Justin Fields. They went in without a legitimate rookie backup plan at the quarterback position. And, oh, by the way, they went in this season without a number 2, a number 3, or a number 4 receiver. And now they're complaining. You can't because you had the opportunity, like Bill Parcells says, because, again, Aaron Glenn apparently talks to Bill Parcells. Guess what? Bill should have told you. You guess what? You're the head coach, basically, in the GM, Aaron Glenn, with Darren Muji. You get to buy the ingredients. You can't complain when the meal comes out, it tastes putrid because you got horrible ingredients. That's on you. And the thing I look at, too, is, like, do I trust Tanner Engstrom to develop this quarterback? Not really at this point. Like, if Brady Cook looks decent, they don't look overwhelmed, maybe I have a different feeling by the end of the season, but right now it's this bad. Like, you have a fan base that I really think is split into 2 camps, and both are not in a good place. And this tells you how bad this how bad it is right now for this fan base. I think there are 2 camps, and you can tell me what camp you're in the comments. Super chat, jump to the front of the line. I think there's a camp that is rooting hard for this team to finish with the worst record. So they get the number 1 pick. They can get a quarterback, but more importantly, they want that number 1 pick, not just so they can have their pick a quarterback, but they want that number 1 pick because they want this regime gone. They do not believe in this regime. They do not believe in Darren Muji. They do not believe in Aaron Glenn. And I understand the counter arguments to one done. Yes, I understand that there's been examples of coaches that have finished with 1 or 2 wins that have gone on to have great careers like Jimmy Johnson. But they typically are the outlier. They are not usually the standard. And you look at a lot of these coaches, Jerod Mayo, for all their warts in New England, I thought he looked like a better head coach than what I'm seeing from Aaron Glenn. And the Patriots took an opportunity. They saw that there was a veteran head coach available for their young quarterback, and look what's happened. If you get the number one pick in as backward of an organization as this has been, and you get a legitimate offensive coach, like if Mike McCarthy calls you again, and Woody was away in London the last time he called, so hopefully he picks up the phone. If Mike McCarthy calls and says, hey, I want to take Fernando Mendoza, or I want to take Dante at the number one pick and him be my quarterback, you know what you do? You say, how quick can you get to New York? Because that to me can be a move that works. That could be a move that makes sense. But I just look, and again, I understand that Muji has been improving. And I know the argument that this trade deadline, you could see them getting some other players that fit the mentality of the scheme. But the problem is this offense is just bad. Like the Jets, like the bar has been so low for the Jets. I think that's what a lot of the national pundits mean, because I keep hearing this. Well, what did you expect from the Jets? What did you expect from the Jets this year? Well, here's the problem. Aaron Glenn gasses up in this offseason. He didn't say, look, this is going to take time. He didn't say this is going to be a rebuilding process. He said that this is going to be a team that's going to compete every week. They're going to clean up the mistakes from last year, and that they're going to be a competitive team. And we thought this would be a 7-win team. 7 wins in the National Football League today, especially with the talent that we thought was on this roster, shouldn't be this hard. But it's also an indictment on this coaching staff where you look, your owner is calling out your quarterback. You know what your quarterback did last year? He won 4 games with the Steelers. And even the Steelers, like, they made the decision, you know what? We don't want Justin Fields. Nice kid, but, nice for a spark, but we don't want him to be our full-time starting quarterback. Like, they went back to the ghost of Russell Wilson last year and refused to put Justin Fields. And I always said at the end of last year, I wonder why they don't give Fields an opportunity. And now, unfortunately, I'm seeing why. And I'm not trying to bash on Justin Fields. I think he's a great kid. I think he's a good leader. But at some point, you got to look for what it is. Justin Fields, right now, until differently, is a backup quarterback. He's a hyper-athletic quarterback who you hope can play a game or two if he has to come in, make enough plays with his legs to win you a ball game. That's what he is at this point. And I see people looking at Brady Cook. Look, Brady Cook is undrafted for a reason. You want to talk about it looking even more difficult. I mean, we're seeing a Justin Fields who's been in this league, and again, his problem was processing defenses. Now you're asking an undrafted kid to make that jump. It is a huge jump. And let's be honest, it's not like Brady Cook has really been working with the team. Justin Fields and Tyrod Taylor are getting the reps at practice. Brady Cook pretty much is kind of sitting on the sideline. So do I think the Jets maybe try to add another veteran? Because I don't know. Justin Fields, like, do you have to get him out of this locker right now? I don't think he will be a cancer, but is it just going to be awkward? And let's face it, what happens in 2 weeks if Tyrod Taylor gets hurt? What happens? Do you put Justin Fields in? And what if Justin Fields surprises us and wins a ball game or two? How's that look for Woody Johnson? Like, it is just so much of a mess right now. And I just think that, do I appreciate Woody being honest about his quarterback? Yes. But do I think he needed to be smarter with how he worded things for his head coach? Absolutely. And I also think he needs more sympathetic to this fan base, because this fan base has put up with so much over the last 15 years, or you could argue the last 57 years, and how much time and effort they've put into this team and just to get nothing out of it. And I just look at this Jet team, and I know that people are like looking at the practice squad and everything, but I don't see like a ton of the talent. Like, I don't see this team going out of their way to improve guys. And the other thing too is, you look at this too. AG, like Aaron Glenn, like, this is the problem when you have a lot of bravado and you don't win. Never forget, what did Aaron Glenn say all offseason? Justin Fields, he has the ability. He wasn't coached properly. You know what his digs were in training camp at Robert Saleh? Oh, this team is talented. They just weren't coached properly. you look at how this team is running a system that doesn't fit the abilities of their quarterback. It's alarming on so many levels because you can look at it as a lot of different ways. Number one, do they not understand what quarterbacks fit in the system? Number two, do they not understand what the strengths of the quarterback need to operate the system effectively? And do they know what to evaluate in talent in terms of what can work in this system? Because I know it's not going to sound like a great suggestion, but wouldn't Mac Jones be better off in this system? A more accurate pass? Like, that's what I thought they were going to do. I thought maybe they trade for like Hendon Hooker or something from Detroit because at least he knew the system, be the backup quarterback. Like, I understand he's an older prospect, but I at least thought, okay, with Hendon Hooker, it's someone that understands the system. It's someone that has worked with this quarterback coach that's now the OC. Maybe that could be a smart move just to get someone in this building that could also run this offense. And, this is like, it's just so frustrating because, again, we are just looking at this front office. And this also has to be a serious question, too. And I brought up a couple times over the last few weeks, but I do think it's a conversation that I do think Woody has had with this front office, especially because we know Woody cares about the attention the Jets get in New York. He wants the Jets to be relevant not only in the NFL, but especially in New York. He wants them to be the team that people are proud of in the city. And I know the Giants had an awful weekend, but through a couple of games, you feel that they have their quarterback. And I talked to Dom C about this. And again, he thinks it's still early on Dart. I still think it's early, but it's trending upward. There's two concerning things about Jackson Dart with the Jets. Number one, that they didn't really have a process with him. If you look back at their 30 visits, he wasn't invited for a 30 visit. They barely went to any of his workouts or pro days. They were focusing on a lot of day 3 guys, which again, they had Justin Fields, and you knew what that meant, that they were going to try to take a project quarterback. And I said at the time, if they take around a day 3 quarterback, that at least, okay, if Fields is terrible, at least we have something to potentially throw out there. I was okay with it, but that didn't happen. Then the next thing is, you also look at the Jets going back, that they had a top 10 pick. When you have a top 10 pick, it is your job to look at the quarterbacks. And again, I don't think a lot of teams had first-round grades. Just look at Jackson Dart. Yes, he was a first-round pick, but the Giants trade back in at 25 to get him. If you're Woody Johnson, you have to have a tough conversation with this staff. Number one, why didn't you do the evaluations on Jackson Dart? And number two, what is it that you saw that you didn't think he could be our quarterback? Now, I do think Armand Menbu has been a great pick. I think it was the smart pick. But now you look back and you have those reflections of, well, if they traded up for Jackson Dart in round 1, could they have been a better spot? I don't know with this coaching staff, but it's a legitimate question. It makes you wonder about their processing. And maybe Darren Muji didn't want to go into the process because, again, he still had a lot of the former scouts from Joe Douglas, maybe didn't trust them on the quarterbacks. Maybe that was part of it. But it does bring up a big concern when you look at this team and you look at they had the opportunity to potentially draft a quarterback and they didn't even interview him. John, I don't see how they can win without a proven offenses-oriented coach. And I think that's unfortunately another thing that factors in. John, that's a very good question. The thing that I also think is working at Aaron Glenn, and again, Aaron Glenn burned up a lot of goodwill. I think he hyped his fan base up to a point where the expectations were too high, and now, reality is set in. But here's the thing. Aaron Glenn was another first-time defensive-oriented coach, a DC that had never been a head coach becoming a head coach. The Jets have done this so many times, and especially the last 15 years, it hasn't worked. Todd Bowles, and look, I think Todd Bowles is a solid coach. I think he's developed a solid coach, but it also helps, too, when you had Bruce Arians be your head coach and help develop you. And you also had Tom Brady, and then you get into Baker Mayfield. It's a lot easier when you have those established quarterbacks, but I digress. The only head coach that was proven, but it was proven he was horrible, was Adam Gase. The problem that this team just refuses to get an offensive coach, especially when they're teams that have young quarterbacks. It's just mind-blowing to me. And I just feel like this fan base has said, we saw even Rex, as much as we love Rex. Yes, Rex got a nice squeeze out of Mark Sanchez for the first 2 years. But did he develop Mark Sanchez into a franchise quarterback? No. Did he hurt Mark Sanchez's development when he brought in Tim Tebow and also played him in the Snoopy Bowl? That didn't help. Did he develop Geno Smith into a franchise quarterback? No. Did the former staffs develop Sam Darnold or Zach Wilson into quarterbacks? No. And I just feel like this fan base has seen this movie over and over again. And until the script changes, why should they believe that the expectation should change, that a defensive coordinating coach is going to be the one that develops into the franchise quarterback? And look, Tony, I think that's a legitimate point. Would Dart succeed with the staff? I don't know, but to me with Dart, it's more that they didn't really look at him in the process as opposed to drafting him. I think, Tony, that's a little harsh just because they had so many injuries last year. But look, Detroit's still a really good football team. And the thing, too, is, and again, this is one of those things I hate that they keep bringing up, is they keep bringing up Detroit. They keep bringing up Detroit. Well, the Jets, you know what Detroit did? They brought in Jared Goff, who was a quarterback that made it to the Super Bowl, was a former top pick. They've turned him into a great quarterback. The Jets had the opportunity to do that kind of reclamation project. They went with Justin Fields, and it's backfired horribly. And the thing is, you wonder, they didn't really design an offense around Justin Fields' best skill sets. And they kept saying they're going to let him play quarterback. Well, the problem is he doesn't process well enough to play the quarterback position. So it's this weird back and forth where you look at this and you go, do the Jets just not understand the type of players they have, or do they just not understand what players work in their schemes? And again, both are very alarming. Both are very curious. And one thing I'll say, because I'll do the trade deadline special next week, because again, I think it will be very important. I also think too that this team is probably going to be 0-8 at the time. I'm curious what Woody's also saying too, because I've been seeing it all along. Jets are going to have a fire sale. Jets are going to sell the house. Jets are going to sell everything. But here's the problem. There are certain players I think can be traded and won't be a huge loss, but I don't think like some of the big star players like Quinnen are going to get traded simply because I think Aaron Glenn understands, or at least Darren Mujier, someone should understand, hey, there's a chance that this goes as bad as it's trending. We're going to get fired. Like, if this team, you can't sell everyone. And if this team goes 0-17, 1-16, your defense is like, well, we sold all our players off at the trade deadline. That's why we were terrible. And that's why we couldn't compete. That's not an excuse. And that's not a good excuse to keep a staff, because if the staff wins, to me, I've been asked this a lot off air. Like, what is the fireable winning range? And again, I think it all depends on how bad the games look. 0-17, I don't see how you come out of that. Even 1-16, because there's only been one team in NFL history that's lost 16 games in a season. That's the Lions. So you're historically bad. Like, to me, the line is 2-15. It depends on how you look. If you're 2-15, but you played well in other games, does that hold over? Rico the Pup, it's just arrogance. Thought he could fix some players, took shot at previous regimes, and like most arrogant people, can't adapt because he didn't think he would need to. And again, these are all legitimate concerns, Rico. If Aaron Glenn had just said, we're going to work hard, we're going to look to clean up things, I think this fan base would be a little bit more lenient. But when you call out Robert Saleh and say, Robert Saleh, that former regime, they couldn't coach. I'm going to show them how to do it. And you don't think Robert Saleh and Jeff Olbrich are laughing right now at Aaron Glenn saying, look at that schmuck. He made fun of our coaching, but he can't even win a football game. When you say that you are going to be a competitive team and you're going to be a team that makes Jets fans proud, I mean, you have a Jet fan base now that doesn't even want to drive out to the stadium. Like, I talked to my buddy. I said, how many went to the Panthers game? He's like 40,000. I looked at the schedule and I'm like, there's not a lot of big fan bases that travel. I'll be shocked if MetLife is over 40,000 people the rest of the year. And in an 82,000 stadium, that's going to be very, very noticeable. I mean, I guess it's good. Listen, the Jets don't play home in primetime again. It's, it's just so frustrating, and that's the thing. Like, I just look at this team, and Rico, you brought up a good point. Like, Aaron Glenn was so defiant. He was so, and again, people go to the Campbell comparative. But the thing too is the Lions had no expectations. The problem is the Jets got these expectations, especially when you brought back some of the talented players. Like, if you gutted this roster, like you moved on from Sauce Gardner, you moved on from Jamie and Sherwood, you moved on from Kuhn, Wynn, and Williams, I think you would have been in a situation where a lot of people have been like, I understand that this is going to be a rebuild. And yeah, this year's going to be frustrating, but at least we know what the expectations were. The problem was the staff and this front office gassed the expectations that not only could this team win 6 or 7 games, but if things broke right and things broke the right way, maybe we're talking about ending this playoff drought. And it just feels like we are further than ever from that. Like, the only other season that kind of compares to this was 2020. But the problem with 2020 was you were hoping that Adam Gase would be fired, but there was a light at the end of the tunnel. There was a generational quarterback prospect at number 1. There's some nice prospects, but there's no Andrew Luck at the top of this draft. And then this weird thing too is you want this, you see this fan base rooting for the tank, and I hate tanking. And it's more or less not necessarily get the number 1 pick. It's so the staff is gone. Because this staff has burned up so much goodwill with this fan base, and it's understandable. They talk a big game, and they have fallen so flat on their face. This fan base is like, we're done. They're apathetic. And the thing, too, is like Rex Ryan puffed his chest out. But you know what his teams did? They competed. This team, they just look incompetent. They can't score touchdowns. They haven't scored a touchdown in 2 consecutive games. And you're trying to tell all these fans who have been extremely patient, like, you cannot preach patience to Jet fans because they have waited too damn long for success. They're not going to take, they'll take progress. The thing I say about Jet fans is they are an incredibly smart fan base because they know what bad football looks like. And what they are seeing is bad football. And the thing is with Aaron Glenn, you can make mistakes. You're a rookie head coach. But when you keep making the same mistakes and when you keep letting the clock run out at the end of halftime and not even try, it just doesn't sit well for this fan base. But look, Woody John spoke today. I think Justin Fields' career is over with the Jets, whether he gets cut this year at the end of the season, and it just seems done. I'm curious to see how it plays in this locker room. I'm curious to see if there's any tension in this locker room. And again, it'll be fascinating. If this team drops to 0-8, I'm wondering how many guys are just going to say, get me out of here. Just get me out of here. And if that happens, that's also another indictment on this coaching staff, because this team has played for another regime that, again, did not have success and was a bad coach. And if they're bailing on this staff this early, where at least with Saleh, you could say that this team fought for those guys and try to make it work, that is also very alarming and very telling. And look, my biggest thing, I take this is my biggest takeaway for Woody Johnson. I don't mind when Woody Johnson speaks his mind. I think, though, he has to be very careful about what he says, because I do think that Justin Fields' comments could hurt the locker room morale. And I do think it puts more pressure on this coach. I also have a theory that maybe Woody did it because he knew Aaron Glenn didn't want to have more egg on his face with the whole Tyrod decision. He's like, you know what? I'll just announce it today and take that pressure off Aaron Glenn. Maybe that's part of it. He likes Aaron Glenn. Maybe that's an unsaid part of this. But I'll basically say this, and this is the thing. When Glenn makes you miss the days of Adam Gase and Robert Saleh, that's saying something. But I'll finish with this. I think the biggest thing that the next time Woody speaks to the media, I think he needs to be more compassionate with this fan base, because this fan base has given so much. And I understand whether we show up to the games or not, Woody Johnson's still going to make an incredible amount of money. But I think there needs to be a bit of pride here and a little bit of humility, because Jet fans especially, I don't know if it's lowering ticket prices, I don't know if it's adding incentives to the ticket packages, but this fan base, deserves to be treated, because when this ownership asked this fan base to turn out when Aaron Rodgers was here, you saw how much passion this fan base had, and you saw how much they invested. And now they're seeing this. I mean, think about this. How much would a Jet fan, because I know there's got to be at least a couple, that travel to London, travel back to New Jersey, and then went to the game Sunday. So they would have traveled thousands of miles to see 2 Jet games and not see a single touchdown. It's humiliating. And for Woody Johnson, you have a loyal fan base, but you need to treat them better, because they have treated this franchise so well, despite this franchise not giving anything. And I don't know what it is, but I do think when Woody Johnson speaks to this fan base, it has to be with more compassion, because they have been through the ringer and they're done. Like, this is the angriest I've seen this Jet fan base. It's one of two emotions. It's absolute anger or it's apathy. Like, even back in 2020, there was this kind of gleeful, weird hope with the Trevor Lawrence pursuit. It was like, we're going to get the great quarterback. A great coach is going to want to come here to work with that quarterback. And you know what? We've been through the ringer, but we as Jet fans deserve it. And then, of course, we know what happened. The Jets couldn't even get the number 1 pick that year. They settled for Zach Wilson. And again, you just look at, like, with Aaron Rodgers with the Achilles injury. It's just like this fan base just cannot catch a break. And I'm just so hopeful that they finally can figure out the quarterback. And I do think they're going to draft a talented quarterback in April. But the big question is, can this coaching staff earn enough back from this fan base? Because, again, I think this fan base is done with this staff. And it's unfortunate, because I think Aaron Glenn would be a great story. But this regime now has a critical trade deadline, and they have a critical final 10 games. And it's not that they have to just show their confidence. They have to show that they are improving and that they can be trusted with a young quarterback. Because right now, it doesn't seem like that would be the smart decision. Thank you, everyone, for joining us on Rich Sports Talk. You can check us out wherever podcasts are available. And again, make sure to like and subscribe so you don't miss any of our latest episodes. Again, we come live on live streams after every single game. Just a bit of forewarning. This will be the one weekend I will not be doing the live stream. I'll try to do it either later on Sunday night, or I will try to do it Monday morning. Let me know in the comments what would be easier for you guys. Again, want to accommodate you, because I will be going on a much well-deserved vacation. This will be my break and getting a little mental health check from this football team, and I think it is much deserved. But again, make sure to like and subscribe to miss our live streams. Again, we will have a different live stream this week. This will be the one exception throughout the year. But again, make sure to like and subscribe to miss any of our latest episodes. Thanks, everyone, for joining us here on another episode of Rich Sports Talk. We will see you next time.